Ted, do you believe you have a soul?
What did you think I would do at this moment when you're standing before me with tears in your eyes? That answer your question?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fanzone Debate. We're here for a debut match. We got another debut match coming at you. Two guys who have never been in this ring before. We got Josh Forbes going up against John Maher. I'm looking forward to this. I think Payson might be frozen again, but we're going to just let him look like that because he looks incredible. I'm excited. Here's why. Here's why I'm pumped. Because Josh, friend of Javi, he came in to the game and into fandom and does pretty well in fandom. And then he was like, I want to play debate too. And I was like, absolutely. I'm excited to see him here. John, we know John. We love John. We've seen John many times in the worlds of trivia. He does his horror stuff. It's awesome. And then I said to myself, why doesn't John debate? I think he'd be good at that. And I said, John, why don't you debate? And he was like, heavy as the crown. And so then a few days later, he's like, all right, put me in. I want to try it. And so we're going to see what happens. And I'm looking forward to it because I think both these guys are knowledgeable, cool dudes. Whether they can adapt to this game, we'll find out. Got a couple people here with me to judge this one. Someone who's very good at this game, Amaru Moses. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the judge's seat once again. How are you? And what do you think of this matchup?
I'm doing well. I'm actually really excited. Finally, again, on this side where there is some pressure, but not the pressure I'm usually feeling when I'm in this ring. I'm very excited because I'm with you, Tim. The recruitment needed to start up a little bit. We started seeing the same people during like round robins with each other. So seeing new faces like Kaiser and Javi and them coming in and bringing life, getting more life with more people to debate is always a great thing for me because y'all know I love debate. So
awesome. And Payson, welcome as well. You're unfrozen now, but you still look good. You looked good then. You look good now. And what do you think of the matchup? Any thoughts on either player?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for this match. John is someone I know he has a lot of like really strong opinions, and he is really good at formulating and like speaking those opinions out. So I'm excited to see how those translate into debate. Josh, sort of like an unknown commodity a little bit to me. So I'm excited to see what he brings as well. So I'm excited.
Yeah, interesting enough, Javi not here to support Josh. I asked him if he was going to come and watch, and he said, yeah, we'll see. So just shows you, Josh, I mean, if you want to drop out of his wedding, like, I think it's probably the smart choice. Okay, let's get into this. This is how it's going to work. So the players drafted categories. We gave them questions based on those categories, and they're going to debate them tonight before our very souls. So they will each get a 1-minute opening, followed by a 5-minute freeform, followed by a 1-minute closing. At the end of the debate, Amaru, Payson, and I will write on our boards who we thought won the question. 2 out of 3 votes will win you a point, and the first player to 3 points will win the match. Josh and John, welcome. Do you have any questions before we begin?
No questions. Let's run that TED clip.
Oh, baby. Season 2 of TED now streaming exclusively on Peacock. It is very, very good. Okay.
We're doing ad reads now?
What's that?
We're doing ad reads now?
Yep. For that show, I will always promote. All right, gentlemen. Your first question is going to come in the category of sci-fi fantasy. This was drafted by Josh. The question is, what is the best scene in a Lord of the Rings film? So, Josh, you get to go first because you drafted this question. You get 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking. I will come in to give you a 10-second warning when that time comes. So, again, 1 minute to open your argument.
Minas Tirith has fallen. All hope appears to be lost. The forces of the enemy hopelessly outnumber the forces of King Theoden. I think the best scene in the Lord of the Rings film is the Ride of the Rohirrim. You could see the hopelessness in Eowyn's eyes. Theoden needs to rally his troops. He gives that iconic line, "Spears shall be shaken, shields shall be splintered, a sword day, a red day." As he bangs his sword against the spears of all of the horsemen rallying them, he commands them to ride now. He cries, "Death!" 3 times. And in my opinion, there's no scene that captures the sort of war feeling and just it stirs up the emotions as much as that scene does. As he calls and rallies them to ride, the Rohirrim charge. You see the orcs begin to falter. He brings hope to the battlefield when it was previously hopeless.
Time.
He brings.
Ooh, all right. So we will move over to John. John, you now have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
It's interesting to bring up emotions because we're dealing with the Lord of the Rings, and what is Lord of the Rings but a series of like epic battle scenes? So I feel to pick an epic battle scene is kind of like old hat. When we have actual characters in this movie that are going through actual things and having actual growth, and I think the last stand of Boromir is probably the greatest scene in the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. Sean Bean, first we'll get to be a great Sean Bean death, first of all, for all movie fans. Sean Bean dies. He previously had almost betrayed the Fellowship. He was tempted by the ring. And this is his great redemption scene where he dies hard, defending Pippin and Merry, who probably didn't deserve to be defended because they really do a shit job of backing him up. But he gets hit with 1 arrow, and you think he's dead. And he gets back up, and he slices through a whole bunch of more people. He gets hit with a 2nd arrow. This guy's fucking toast. He's not. He gets up again, kills like 3 or 4 more people, and then Lurtz hits him with the 3rd arrow. And then his death allows Aragorn to come in and have his big hero moment. And then we move on to the second film soon after.
Time. All right. I like these movies. Shocker. So, gentlemen, 5 minutes is now on the clock. I will throw up a 1 minute warning when that time comes. I will also come in for the 10-second warning as well. If one of you is talking too much, being a bit of a douche, I'll throw up the let your opponent talk. Don't make me do that. That makes me sad. I don't enjoy it. So again, 5 minutes when one of you starts talking.
You want to finish your original point? Finish your original point.
My greater point was just that, like, bringing hope to a hopeless situation from an unexpected place is kind of the whole idea of Lord of the Rings, right? It's Frodo coming and saving the world, like, from an unexpected place being the Shire. It's salvation coming through a hobbit is very unexpected. And King Theoden coming in and saving Minas Tirith is, I think, just exemplifies like what Lord of the Rings is all about.
Well, let me ask you a question. As a bigger fan of the movies than I am, does it bother you that the Ride of the Rohirrim is like bookended by the Witch King, like not finishing off Gandalf like a dumb fuck, and also right after that it cuts out in the middle of it and it goes to Denethor trying to kill himself, doesn't it? Isn't it like a mood killer?
No, I actually think that exemplifies my point more because it perfectly contrasts King Theoden and Denethor, because King Theoden, against all odds, is bringing the Rohirrim all the way across the world in order to help stand against evil. And Denethor wants nothing to do with it. Denethor ultimately gives up hope. That's why he pours the oil on himself and he's completely forsaken the city.
But it kind of grinds the whole thing to a halt when you say, because we get some, I mean, it's CGI, it's heavy CGI,
of course.
Right? It is heavy CGI, but you get a lot of good action. Like they're trampling, and you say they're outnumbered, yeah, but they're definitely not outclassed because those orcs are scared shitless. They get run over like hard, and like just when things start getting good, before we even get like the more battles, we cut to John Noble being a buzzkill. So I think in the framing of the entire movie, it's a good scene, but it ends too soon. I want to see more trampling.
That's fair, but I think that goes to a difference in what we understand the Lord of the Rings to be. You kind of said you see it as just like a bunch of battle scenes after battle scenes, but I think getting to the heart of what the saving the world means to each of these characters is much more important. So I think the scene is less of a focus on the Rohirrim as a whole, and it's more King Theoden giving one last charge, crying out death.
I think that point would kind of lend into what I'm saying, because really Boromir's whole growth is he thought he was saving his hometown by trying to steal the ring, and he realizes like, screw, I got to redeem myself, and he gives his life. After probably the greatest redemption in the entire trilogy is him trying to be a hometown boy, making a shit decision, and then having this huge redemption arc where he gives his life for two people he probably wouldn't have cared about 5 minutes earlier.
No, and I would agree with that. And it's tough to argue because I love Boromir and I love his death scene. I would just argue, though, that the impact of King Theoden arriving is just much more meaningful. I think the cinematography, the shots of the kind of sweeping shots of all of the horsemen, just being able to see the grand mass of the battle and Theoden's impact on it, when throughout the rest of the movie, it was very dire, like not a lot of wins happening. And you get to finally see the good guys start to turn the tide of the battle.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant.
I got two more minor points just for the way the scene is shot. Do you think like the constant cutting to like Mary, like being a passenger princess, dumbass, like cuts away from it because he's not doing anything, but like being like, you know, Eowyn's reverse papoose, but it cuts to him like he's doing something. He's not doing anything. And secondly, just like Eowyn turning her face away, like people are going to recognize her. She's in the middle of everybody. Nobody recognized her yet. Does she need to turn her face away? He doesn't know it's her.
Yeah, and I think a large part of that is just because you want to see characters you're familiar with already. We don't really know too many of the rest of the Rohirrim, so in order to get an understanding of what the masses are feeling as a whole, because you can't use King Theoden because he's the one who's trying to rally them, right? You want to see specific characters, so that's why you're focusing in on Eowyn and you're focusing in on Mary, right? Who that in order to understand what the people are feeling as a whole.
I don't deny the Ride of the Rohirrim is like an epic scene and it's a pivotal point in the movie. I don't deny that. But like, I do feel like you're giving, but there's just a heavy reliance on that gigantic scope CGI thing in favor of my scene where it's actual stuntmen doing choreography, putting their actual like lives at risk, fighting with swords. It's much more like true to the craft of action, whereas it's kind of like a cheap out to just put like copy paste a bunch of cavalry for like a year into the background.
Which is a fair criticism and it's understandable. I actually want to bring up a point that you mentioned, which is like kind of cuts to. If I'm not mistaken, Boromir's arrows 1, 2, 3 don't necessarily come right 1, 2, 3 at a time, right? It's cutting kind of back.
It's one shot. He fights, gets hit again. You know, Merry and Pippin stand there. They stop throwing rocks, and then a third shot, and then he's still alive. And then Aragorn saves Lurtz from killing him by starting the fight. And he still gets a cool death scene at the end. He gets a
time. Okay, we're going to do closings first with John. John, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
I think the major strength of Boromir's Last Stand over the Ride of the Rohirrim is like we get an actual like continuing scene. Like we go from like the fight in the side of the woods to Boromir's Last Stand. It's not interrupted by other scenes. Like we didn't cut from Gandalf to Boromir to Denethor, like we do in the Ride of the Rohirrim. And like I said, it's full on stuntmen fighting. These are people actually like doing the choreography. It's not some person on a computer just copying and pasting and having bodies flying all over the place. There's very little work being done by the crew to create the Ride of the Rohirrim. Again, we do have that speech. That speech is great. But I feel the Boromir's Last Stand is a more complete scene. And there's actual character growth. It's the only time any member of the Fellowship actually dies. We don't count Gandalf because he comes back. So it's the only loss we get in the entire trilogy is the death of Boromir. So I feel in the scope of the entire 3 movies, this is a much more important scene than just one cavalry charge that is heavily CGI laden and bookended by weird scenes. I yield my second.
Okay. All right. We go over to Josh. Josh, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
It's interesting that he brings up like that one scene that's bookended by weird scenes because we are judging just based on the scene, right? And I think necessarily, if you want to count the after the scene with Denethor, that's fine. I was mostly just referencing the 4 minutes of the speech followed by that initial charge, right? So when you're talking about Howard Shore's magnificent theme kicking in while they're riding, I think that the overall, if you're looking at the story as a whole, yes, Boromir's death is absolutely important, but this is giving hope. It's very similar to Boromir, where he was sacrificing himself for for a greater cause. This is Theoden sacrificing him and his men with his cries of death for a greater cause. It's just on a greater scale. The horsemen, even, I don't think it's too heavily CGI'd. I know there was some, but the horsemen, the stunt acting on that is also very, very important. Very, very well done. I think the cinematography just shines in the scene and it's magnificent.
Time. All right. Great job, guys, for first bout. It's phenomenal.
Hey, Tim, we're allowed to like have water and stuff during this, right?
I'm drinking.
Unacceptable.
Yeah.
It would be amazing if you said no.
No.
Don't mind me.
A Guinness.
Yeah, we're recording the day after St. Patty's Day. I had an extra.
That's right. Okay, this was great. Like I said, I thought both had really strong openings. Sometimes we get new people in here and they're like, "Oh, I picked this movie because it's good," and then they don't really say anything. These guys did a great job kind of explaining their scenes, why they're impactful to their movies. They pick stuff from different movies, so that obviously helps us. And kind of why their scenes are so good on their own. So and ultimately through the 5 minutes and the closings, I felt like both did a great job of talking about their scenes when they were defending and kind of being like, this is why it's so good. I went with John, and ultimately I think this comes down to a learning thing, unless there was something I missed or something. But I think one of the things that we talk about a lot in this game is like, you don't want to give up the inches, you don't want to give up some hits. And what I felt like Josh did really well was, like I said, talk about his scene, why it's so great. Completely had me convinced. He would throw like a minor barb against the Boromir scene, but not really. He was like, "Oh, I love Boromir. Your scene is fantastic." He said like basically nothing negative about it. And even when John had a hit against his scene, Josh would do some defense in the sense that he was like, "Well, my scene also has, stuntmen and has so some stuff," like he talked about like the Merry and Eowyn thing. Like I think he defended that really well, but on the most part, he'd be like, "That's a fair criticism." And it was like, "Ooh, you don't want to like give him the punch, like deflect it." So I went with John, though I thought Josh did well. Just a couple learning things, I think, in the first one. Payson, what did you think?
Yeah, really strong opening debate from both competitors, and I'm honestly feeling the same way. Pretty similar thoughts with what Tim said. I think both players did a really great job of explaining their picks. I want to give shout out to Josh. Josh did do a really good job at defending some of the takedowns that John said, of John saying like, "Oh, we cut back to Denethor dying," and Josh saying, "Let's sort of like adds juxtaposition to how great Theoden is." Josh said hit on the battle comment of saying like, "Hey, it is Lord of the Rings. We come there for the big battles. At the end of the day, Return of the King, it is a Best Picture winner, and like a lot of Best Picture winners."
Oh no, he got out.
What Payson's trying to say is it's a good movie.
It is. I mean, they're great movies. Like, what can I say?
But like Tim said, I didn't hear a ton of takedown with John's point. I think John did a really good job of trying to get like little things on Josh.
Okay. Amaru, what did you think?
I'm in the same spot. I went with John. I'm basically going to mirror everything you two said already. You took a lot of my points I was going to mention. I really did like Josh's defenses against John's takedowns. He had the two that Pacey mentioned. He had really good comebacks for those. Other thing I would add that John had a lot of good takedowns of the argument. I don't really think I heard too many takedowns from Josh about Boromir's scene. So that was the other thing that tipped it for me was while Josh was defending it well, John kept coming with more attacks, whereas I didn't really hear Josh attack the Boromir scene as much.
No.
All right. So that means John wins the first point. We are going to move on to the next question, which was drafted by John in the category of sports. The question is, who is the best character in a wrestling film? Not sports entertainment wrestling. So we're talking about college, high school, like that type of wrestling, like on the mats and stuff. Right, John? That's what we're talking about. All right, beautiful. Okay, so we're going to start with John. John, you have 1 minute to open when you start talking.
In my memory, there's only one actor that's ever been nominated for a Best Actor Oscar for being in a wrestling movie, and that's Steve Carell as John DuPont in Foxcatcher. Just because I'm picking a character in a wrestling movie doesn't mean the person has to be a good wrestler or even a good person. Steve Carell kind of encapsulates the tortured existence of John DuPont, a man born into wealth, to a mother that only loves horses, and he wants the love of his mother so much, but she will never give it to him. So he tries to find love in revitalizing a sport that America doesn't really care about. And he goes to Dave and Mark Schultz, the Schultz brothers, and creates Foxcatcher, the whole time everyone ignoring every red flag of this broken man just wanting love, to the point that he suffers a psychotic break and murders Dave Schultz in the actual DuPont Foxcatcher tragedy. But I think what Steve Carell does so well is you feel sorry for this man, even though he is clearly insane and clearly homicidal and delusional, but he still brings a humanity to it that I appreciate.
Okay, let's go over to Josh. Josh, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
It's interesting that John picked John DuPont, because I also picked a character from Foxcatcher. I picked actually Mark Schultz, the main character played by Channing Tatum, right? I would say that just because a character is nominated and acts very, very well, which admittedly Steve Carell does, that does not necessarily make a good character. I think Steve Carell elevated a mediocre character and he acted very, very well. Whereas the character, Mark Schultz, was phenomenal, like start to finish. You love an underdog story. Everyone loves an underdog story. Mark Schultz, gold medal winner, but ultimately overshadowed by his brother, right? He's the more popular, the more charismatic one, right? You kind of see his hero's journey throughout it. He meets John DuPont. He finally starts to get this going on his own, and then ultimately is forced to bring in his brother, reconcile with him, and finds the courage to split off from John at the end. He has integrity. He fights for what he believes in, and he stands up. I cede my second.
All right, guys. Foxcatcher, good movie. 5 minutes, and one of you starts talking.
The only thing I'll say just to start is I think any kind of character flaw or character growth we see in Mark, we also see in John DuPont on like a much larger scale. They're both guys who like have a very small family, no friends. John is married to his wealth. Mark is married to wrestling. They're socially awkward. But I think John is just Mark on like a much grander scale.
I would disagree with that a little bit. So the reason I say that I think John is a little bit of a flat character is because ultimately he's a rich boy with mommy issues, right? And I didn't see necessarily that much of a character growth other than in maybe the last 20 minutes, he starts spiraling out of control. Right. And you could argue that that starts at his mother's death. But
I'd say there's a ton of character growth in the sense that, like, we go from a man who knows nothing about wrestling. He's obsessed with birds, and he sees an opportunity to just throw the DuPont family fortune at what he deems to be a struggling sport that the country has forgotten. So there's also his savior complex. There's that kind of like, are they gay? Him and Mark, I don't know. That happens a lot in the movie. A lot of weird, are they gay stuff? And then just him clearly struggling with psychosis. He has his weird handler, Anthony Michael Hall. What's his deal? So I think it's much more deep, whereas Mark also has mental health struggles, but there really are just like, oh, am I losing? This is the first time I've ever, am I losing? And so it's like I said, it's still happening with Mark Schultz, but everything is happening to John.
My problem, though, is that it just, all of those ideas are present. I just don't think they're necessarily explored as well as they are with Mark. With Mark, you have repeated shots of him in the mirror talking to himself, constantly reflecting how he perceives himself and how he thinks that the world perceives him. It's brilliant cinematography. It's a great reflection on his character. With John, you really don't get to see those scenes. You don't get to see the depth of his character.
I think you do see them. I think you do see them. Just like there's the scene when Dave is basically trying to save Mark and he's pulling him away, and John keeps trying to talk to him. And Dave keeps going over like, no, dude, it's okay. Every single time John tries to take the floor, like the time when Vanessa Redgrave, his mother, is wheeled into the room, and he starts doing like really shitty wrestling instruction, and it's so pathetic. But he's so deluded that he's a good wrestler and he's a good coach that he just continues, and they just walk out on him. Like there's a lot of like humiliation that John DuPont faces, but he's so gone that like it never registers on him, where everything hits Mark, like every single thing, like Mark, like John making Mark do coke, and like John making Mark say he's like my dad, like all these weird humiliations Mark just owns, John ignores.
Yeah, which I'll grant, but I guess my point there is you see that John just has these humiliation rituals. He does this embarrassing like fake coaching thing, but it's because his character, I think, is just kind of stagnant. That's who he is. He's there to be the foil to Mark and Dave, right?
I guess ultimately that's kind of true, but I feel they leave it understated on Bennett Miller leaves it understated on purpose, because there's a lot of people that are not familiar with the Foxcatcher tragedy. Like if you're watching the movie, you're not expecting John DuPont to murder Dave Schultz. So if you just kind of let loose, hey, this guy's fucking nuts, like then the murder scene at the end doesn't hit. When like Dave's just playing with his kids and he's just trying to fix his car and John DuPont rolls up and blows him away, you're like, where the hell did that come from? And I guarantee like 90% of America doesn't know that was going to happen.
That is true. Most people
following
don't know
the story. So you kind of have to mute the personality.
Even in that story, I would say that that spiral that he does at the end is incredibly rushed. He goes from just kind of this foil, this like, oh, look at me, I'm doing this, to I'm willing to shoot a guy, right? That's not, I wouldn't say that that's great character growth. I would say that that is just a rushed ending to, and I know that it's biographical, so you can't necessarily fault them for that. But at the same time, I would say, like, if you're looking at a character, the gradual progression of Mark's story just absolutely outshines that.
I would strongly disagree, because really at its core, Foxcatcher is a mental health story. And like, honestly, like this guy going through an active psychotic break is not going to like plan the murder. Even when he was convicted, he wasn't convicted of like first-degree murder. He was convicted of third-degree manslaughter in real life. So that thing did happen that fast. Like you might say it's a story flaw, but that's actually what happened to John DuPont. He was weird the whole time and homicidal on one morning. So like, I don't fault the writers or the directors. It's actually reflected exactly as it happened. Back to Mark. Yeah, go ahead.
No, it does reflect exactly as it happened. But that is kind of my point, is the character of John DuPont. Sure, it may be on a grander scale, but if we're looking at specifically characters, and we are looking at characters in this movie, the character of John DuPont, I just think doesn't shine as much as the character of Mark Schultz does. Mostly because it is grander, it is loftier.
I really think Mark Schultz wound up looking weak, and actually Mark Schultz had problems with his depiction in this movie, and that he recanted later, but he had a problem with it.
Okay, we're going to start closings with Josh. Josh, you have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
I see where John is coming from regarding John DuPont. I really do. But ultimately, I think if you do look at the characters of John DuPont in the movie Foxcatcher and the character of Mark Schultz in the movie Foxcatcher, outside of real historical events, the character of Mark Schultz just shines that much more, right? You have throughout the entire movie his gradual progression, and it is a mental health movie. You have his progression of being that nobody, being that underdog, even though he's a world champion, not getting the recognition he deserves, to finally reaching a place where he can compete again and do good with John at Foxcatcher, to ultimately his realization that John is crazy and he needs to get out of there. And he brings his brother in, and it's emotional and it's gritty and it's heartbreaking. And that's everything that you want to see in a character. And then you look at a character like John DuPont and you see him and it's kind of flat throughout the movie. And then it ultimately, he starts spiraling and then bam, he kills someone. You tell me which one's more compelling.
Time. Okay, let's go over to John. John, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Mark Schultz isn't an underdog. It's actually a big deal when he loses. That doesn't happen to underdogs. There's two scenes in the movie where Mark Schultz loses, and it's a huge deal. If he was an underdog, that wouldn't be a big deal. John DuPont is a much shinier character than Mark Schultz is. Mark Schultz is struggling, but he's struggling with the fact that like he's not at the top of his game. John DuPont is struggling to find his place in the world. His mother does not love him. His mother loves the horses more than him. He finds camaraderie in these men that ultimately don't respect him and are just using his money for a training facility. It eventually drives him crazy that Mark leaves. Basically, it might be a lover thing. We don't know. And that he thinks Dave pushed him away. And in that psychotic break, he commits murder. We have a man going from like the entire wealth in the world to murder. At the beginning of the movie, Mark Schultz is a world champion wrestler. At the end of the movie, he is a world champion wrestler. There is no growth in that character. John DuPont goes from a member of the richest family in the world to surfing time in a Pennsylvania state prison. I don't think there's more character growth. You can't compare the two. Ultimately, on way different sides of the scale.
Okay. Let's bring in the judges. Just so everyone knows, Payson was cutting in and out, so he's listening in on his phone and is on camera, just so he doesn't miss anything that you guys say.
Are you gonna force him to record B-roll for the final cut that gets published?
That's funny. But we'll wait for Payson to come back, and then we'll get our votes in. All right, we're back, and we are going to get votes. We're going to start with Mr. Moses.
This was really good. I was very happy with this one. I was going back and forth a lot. These close ones are really hard to judge because both of you had really strong attacks on each other, and both of you had really, really good defenses of those. Your openings were strong, your closing was strong. I will give it that because John has the last thing to say. He was able to put a couple of more things at Mark without any rebuttals. So that's a good strategy thing on top of find a way to say it in the round, but time goes by, right? When it gets this close, you feel bad either way, and you got to stick to something that stands out by the slightest of margins. And for me, I gave this to Josh. The thing that stood out that John did have some attacks for, but I still understood where Josh was coming from was that John DuPont is stagnant as a character, not at where he's at life. And I really like John coming back with started as a world-class wrestler, ended as a world-class wrestler, started as a wealthy person and ended in prison. But Josh was focusing on the internal character, not what was going outside, especially with the looking in the mirror and reflecting thing. The character side, not the where are they now side. So I kept with Josh because he convinced me that the character growth was there more in Mark than it was in John.
All right. Yeah, I agree with Rue. I did go Josh. I agree with most of what he said. I thought this was really good. One of those ones that, could have gone either way. And I was kind of picking up, or I was trying to pick on things that would make me lean one way or the other. And ultimately, I agree with kind of what Rue says was I liked that take from Josh, the more the internal part of the character. And I think that it was a good hit from John at the end of saying he starts as a world-class, ends as a world-class. But I think Josh did just enough in the 5 minutes in his closing that it kind of put it over that one hit for me. But this was fantastic. So Payson, your thoughts? Oh no. Dead eye.
Really thinking.
I thought he was just really thinking this time.
Oh, he's on his phone, so we'll get the phone, Payson.
He's pondering.
I hate everything. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, you're good, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay. Real quick, I'm just gonna mute my desktop. Okay, so I agree with everyone. I thought it was a really good match. But where I don't agree with everyone, I actually went against the grain, and I put John. I think John did a really good job at knocking down Josh's argument of saying that, John DuPont is just sort of a stagnant character. And I think John just said, well, he is emotionally stagnant. I think that's very interesting into the fact that he is so complex with everything that dealing with pressure from his mom and pressure from his family and all the inner turmoil and a lot of the stuff that makes John DuPont an interesting character is very internal, while Mark is very much on the screen, and that argument really got there for me.
All right, sounds good. We'll let Payson figure stuff out, and we'll be right back. All right, we're back. We'll see how Payson does. I think he's got it. I think it's good. I think we're good. All right, we're going to move on to the next question. The next question was drafted by Josh in the category of family films. Your question is, which Toy Story character in Toy Story 1 through 3 would be the most fun to hang out with? Josh, because you drafted this, you get to go first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
So I went with Ham because Ham is a legend. I fucking love the guy, I got a couple bullet points. I'm just going to list them off. You got John Ratzenberger as the voice, and who wouldn't want to have a friend whose voice was John Ratzenberger? Am I right? His sarcasm and his just kind of like one-off snarky attitude towards everything, I think is freaking hilarious. Because at the end of the day, he is a good guy. You know, he does have the greater interest of the toys at heart, and you want someone like that instead of a selfish, stuck-up cowboy like Woody on your side. In my opinion, the guy who plays the villain but isn't one is always a great guy to have in your corner. Think like the dungeon master in a game of D&D, right? He's a great guy that you can have. If he's a piggy bank, so he can cover your drinks if you go out drinking to a bar. Always a great asset. And yeah, I'm gonna see the rest of my time. I love Ham, man. He's a great guy.
Oh, that was phenomenal. All right, let's move over to John. John, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
I don't know if I love my character, but I did, really think about this question about who I'd actually want to hang out with. And it's a character that's a human being. He's shown a lot of growth through the first 3 movies because he's holding down a government job that he has to wake up very early in the morning to do. But this dude gets off at noon, and he clearly knows how to have a great goddamn time. Sid Phillips is the guy I'd like to hang with because this dude, he's probably still living at home. He's saving all of his money. He's got the whole afternoon to hang. I can take him anywhere. I can go to the bar. He's got a beard. He's drinking now. We can go to the arcade. We can do whatever we want. I don't necessarily know if I want to hang out with a toy. I don't know what I would do with a toy if I'm hanging out with him. I don't know if the rules of the toy world apply if I'm hanging out with toys. But Sid is a dude, and he's a real dude, and he loves heavy metal, and he's a hardworking man. He's responsible. He's learned his lesson. He's no longer the sociopath that we saw in Toy Story 1. Now he's just a contributing member of society, and I want to hang out with Sid fucking Phillips, man. Let's go.
I forgot what you guys had answered, so this is phenomenal. 5 minutes when one of you starts talking.
What would hanging out with Ham look like?
I don't even know where to start with this. Okay. First of all, I feel like in the spirit of the question, we're suspending disbelief just a little bit.
But just what would you do?
We're hanging out with the characters, right? We're not necessarily hanging out with an actual piggy bank, right? In this scenario, I feel like I'm personified. I am a toy, and so I'm hitting the toy bar with my buddy Ham. Okay. I got a couple issues with Sid. One, he's a psychopath. Okay?
Not anymore. He would never have been hired by the city. He has to pass tests to be a garbage man. That's a municipal job. They don't hire psychopaths. But go ahead.
Okay, but he's clearly hiding it really well because we don't have any indication other than the 2 seconds of screen time he gets in Toy Story 3.
But I feel he has a very quick redemption arc at the end of Toy Story where he's scared straight because he's the only human the toys reveal themselves to. He's like, holy shit. And I think ever since that moment, he's absolutely scared straight. And I think it might be the reason why he's a garbage man, because now if people throw out toys, he's there. If he needs to save them. I feel that's why Sid became a garbage man. So at heart, I think he's a cool dude.
Even assuming that he is reformed, okay? Problem number 2, he's still a teenager, okay?
He's got to be 21 to be a garbage man. He's got to be 21 to be a garbage man.
Maybe in certain regions. I don't think that's universal.
I thought we're suspending disbelief. He's clearly 21 years old.
We don't know that he's 21.
He's older than Andy. He's older than Andy, and Andy's going to college. So it's
maybe by a year or 2. But you go to college at 18. He has to be. He's not 3 years older than Andy in Toy Story 1. Okay, that's out of the question. He's under 21. You're hanging out with teenagers in a bar, John. What are you doing, man?
He's not 17. He's over the age of 18. We don't have to go to the fine. We'll just go to the arcade. But I feel like I have more in common with Sid than I do with Ham because really, what do we ever see them do that isn't imaginary, right? They play Battleship, they watch television, they have conversations, and I really think Ham's role in the group really only shines because everyone else in the group is borderline stupid. He's smart because everyone's stupid. He's sarcastic because nobody gets it. Or when they make jokes, he's so superior. He could I'm Picasso. I don't get it. And he gets to get away with that. He gets to get away with that.
Hang out with the smartest guy in the room, right?
He doesn't become the smartest guy in the room if we hang out with him. Ham being sarcastic to me or you, we would not tolerate that. Ham being intelligent with me or you is going to look like stupidity. Whereas Sid,
I
I know he's stupid.
That's where
Sid,
I disagree with you, because
I know Sid's a C
I would
student.
get along great with him. I would love it if he was sarcastic to me. I was sarcastic to him. Like whenever Potato Head like gets sarcastic with him, he takes it. They're best buds. They're constantly jiving back and forth. That's how I hang out.
But I feel a lot of Ham's best lines are against like Rex and like dumb people, and like we're gonna lose that because we're not gonna be that stupid around Ham.
John, how old are you?
Probably older than you. I am 46.
Exactly. I'm 25 years old. Yeah. And I don't like hanging out with teenagers all that much.
Sid is not a teenager. He is a young adult, and I feel like this dude plays video games, which I enjoy. I feel he'd hang out in the backyard and play cornhole. He would play darts. There's plenty of cool things Sid and I could do because we're both humans. Whereas with Ham, I'm just like, I guess we can do this. I guess we can do
have
that.
to suspend the disbelief in this.
But like so then you need a child's imagination. You need a child's imagination to even manifest, toy Josh hanging out with Ham. And who knows what they're going to make you do. That's really weird. You could be doing anything.
I feel like approaching that question from that scenario, obviously, like I'm going to be at a disadvantage. But if I'm approaching it as I'm in, Andy's bedroom, right? And I'm
what are you doing there? Holy crap.
As a toy, okay?
Okay, I mean, you're giving me shit for hanging out with an 18-year-old kid. You're in a kid's bedroom. Weird.
If I am in one of Andy's toys and I'm choosing someone in the cast to hang out with, it's got to be Ham. And I feel like that's how we have to approach the question. Clearly, you're approaching it as yourself, which is fine, but I'm approaching it from a different direction. I feel like you have to acknowledge that if we're not approaching it from that direction, like you can't even like make an argument, right?
Well, you clearly are, but I'm saying like I know what I like to do when I hang out. I think you know what you like to do when you hang out. So I'm picking somebody who I feel has the capability of hanging out without it being like weird or imaginary. It's just like, let's have fun. Let's do fun things humans do. Like let's not do whatever. Like because then you're opening it up where it's like, oh man, we can just do whatever we want and be at the whim of a 7-year-old's imagination. It's like that's not fair. Like let's hang out.
But my point is, like, I'm not at the whim of a 7-year-old's imagination, okay? Because if I was, then, like, you can't even engage with the question.
I mean, I think the way you framed it, we have to. Because if you're a toy and he's a toy, that's it.
Oh, man, I love this. All right, we're going to start with John for closings. John, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
One of us talked about being in a child's bedroom. I want the judges to remember that and judge accordingly. But Sid is a dude. And like I hang out with like 20-year-old crew people. It's fine. They're fun. He's clearly likes music. You can go to a concert. He clearly likes video games. You could go play video games. He likes toys even. He probably collects toys still too. I mean, he has normal interests that normal people have. Hanging out with a toy, I don't know what I would do besides have a conversation. And Ham would be sarcastic and he would be intelligent. I have sarcastic, intelligent friends, right? I don't have like a friend with a government job where he gets off at noon that we can go day drinking all day and have a great time. I hold that he's 21. And honestly, if we could suspend disbelief that Josh can hang out in a little boy's bedroom, then we could suspend disbelief that this kid can drink at 20 years old. And that's what we're doing. We are partying all day. Me and Sid Phillips going down the strip, getting whores and liquor. Let's go, Sid.
God damn. Okay, Josh, you have 1 minute when you start talking. I'm so sorry.
There's so much to unpack here. I don't even know where to start. So Sid clearly is under 21. I think we established that. There's no refuting. So if you're going to throw jabs at me about, being in a child's bedroom or whatever in the suspended disbelief that I'm a toy, then I can throw the same jab at you saying that you keep wanting to get whores and liquor with someone who's under 21. That's, I think, kind of weird. It's just, maybe that's just me. Things that you could do with him. I like talking with my friends. That's what I do when I hang out with someone. I like making silly jokes, making jabs, arguing about movies with them. That's what I do in my free time. That's probably what I would do with him. They clearly have television. They clearly are able to have a functioning society. Maybe they have a saloon. I don't know. But I feel like if I was thrown into that scenario, right, where I'm in this world with these characters, then I would want to hang out with him because He seems like the realest guy in the bunch. He's a dude you can kick back with and hang. And he has money.
Man. That was fun.
That was a batshit crazy round, John. Holy cow.
Everyone knew where I was
Do you
going.
remember the argument you had with Bill against which would be the worst Batman villain to go on a road trip? That same energy. Like maybe my
exact same energy. Exact same energy.
Okay. Wow.
Oh man, I didn't even bring up that.
Nope.
I know, I can't say it. That was a good strategy. Sneaky.
All right. Payson, you're going to kick us off on this one.
Okay. That was an absolute blast. I got to admit, I am discounting both the argument that John tried to bring up of, oh, you're a human, can toys meet? And I also discounted the argument of, oh, Sid's not 21. You're answering the question. The question is it stands.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I did decide to go with Josh. And the reason why is because I think Josh made a lot of really good arguments as to why Ham seems like a likable guy to be around, why Sid might be a little obnoxious. And John did bring up that, hey, maybe Sid would be fun. At the same time, Josh brought up two things that, as stupid as they may be, they worked for me. One, Ham will cover your drink when you're out in public with it being a toy. And the last thing, it may have been a cheap thing saying at the end, yeah, Ham has money. Ham is a piggy bank. So you can always just get money. So congrats, Josh. You win this very, very silly argument. But John did a great job too. But Josh did get the point for me.
Amaru, what are you thinking?
This is the John I've been waiting for. 100%. The strategy of just throwing Josh off and trying to get into semantics is a good strategy. As entertaining as it was, I will say this, to be honest, as a debate, it was not great. We got too lost in the weeds, got too lost in semantics. And again, as a strategy to kind of throw them off, that's good to start. But to continue that, it's like I was waiting. I was basically at a standstill into the closings. I really like Josh's opening, and I really like John's counters in the beginning of the debate, saying that Sid is a garbage man, and he saved the toys, so we know he turned it around. So I was kind of like, all right, I'm kind of 50-50. I need to see how the closings are. And for me, I also ended up with Josh, because after parsing through all the stuff that was funny, John gave me a lot of scenarios that could be cool with Sid, but I don't know exactly what Sid is like in those scenarios. Josh gave me, no matter where I'm going, I know the person or the toy or the character I'm going to hang out with is going to be cool with no matter where I'm going. And that always sways me about the person and not what I could do, not knowing 100% what Sid is doing, what Sid is going to be like as a person. I was waiting for John to tell me more about Sid the person, and after the saving the toys, I didn't hear much after that.
That's really smart what you guys just said there.
I wonder who you voted for.
I voted for John. But what Rue just said, that was a lot of smart talk there. That was good. Yeah, no, I went with John. My brain was kind of the opposite of Rue's, but the way Rue just described it, I'm like, oh yeah, oh, that makes a lot of sense. But I ultimately went with John because I was like, oh yeah, the way he's describing it, even without suspending the disbelief, I was like, oh, we can go do stuff. We could go to the bar. We could go to the arcade, concerts, whatever. He seems like he's turned his life around. Day drink, woo. And then he mentioned the thing about, Ham just sits in front of the TV, maybe plays Battleship or whatever. But what Rue just said, I like that a lot. But in the arguments, John had me there, but I see where my fellow judges were coming from on that one. So anyway, Josh wins the point. It is 2-1 in favor of Josh. So John will need to hit this next one in order to send it to the bonus round. So the question was drafted by John in the category of war films. The question is, what is the best opening to a Vietnam War film? John, you get to open. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
I think one of the most accessible things for people of my father's age in Vietnam movies is like the horror of being drafted into the military. And my movie is Full Metal Jacket. We start with all these recruits from multiple walks of lives just getting their heads shaven to look exactly like each other. And then we immediately, within the first minute and a half, are thrown an incredible performance by Arlie Ermey, the consult that was so good Stanley Kubrick hired him and did fewer takes than any actor in the history of working under Stanley Kubrick. Sergeant Hartman's speech that goes on forever, where he dehumanizes these poor boys who just got drafted into the Marines. So many quotable lines, such an incredible performance, mostly ad-libbed. Not that it's horror. It's not the horrors of war that we see later in the movie, but it is the horror of leaving your life to immediately get thrown into a situation where a man you do not know is saying the most horrible things, screaming in your face, mentally abusing you, physically abusing you, and verbally abusing you. Full Metal Jacket's opening slaps.
All right, let's move over to Josh. Josh, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
It's interesting that John brings up that specifically, like the horrors of war, because I think that my movie, Apocalypse Now, actually exemplifies that way better than Full Metal Jacket does. Okay, so you have this superimposed various shots of the jungle getting lit on fire over the end by The Doors playing. And it's just this phenomenal cinematic kind of trippy masterpiece showing you like, you know, trees just suddenly lighting on fire in an explosion. You have Benjamin Willard like upside down throughout most of it, showing that his life got turned upside down. You have various shots of him establishing like, yeah, I'm here. It's horrible. He's squatting while he's eating his food, giving way to his animalistic tendencies, showing war dehumanizes you. The helicopter blades of the choppers mirror the helicopter blades on the ceiling, showing all he can think about is war. War is all consuming. War is horrible. That's what war is about. And I think that Apocalypse Now shows it.
All right, two great picks. We'll get 5 minutes when one of you starts talking.
And they are great picks. Like Full Metal Jacket, great movie, great opening scene. But
I think my only problem with Apocalypse Now, and again, great movie, is that Benjamin Willard is like a fully like inaccessible character. He's a volunteer special forces like commando. Like he volunteered to go into Vietnam. And the point that when he wakes up from his dream, he's like, I'm back in Saigon again. My wife broke up with me because I keep going back to Vietnam. Is war really that horrible if you want to be there? None of the guys in Full Metal Jacket want to be there with the exception of maybe Pyle. But the rest of them don't want to be there at all.
But the whole point of like this shot is that war is all consuming. That's not what he wants to think, but war, it forces you out of your body. And Full Metal Jacket does a really good job of showing that, of like, you are no longer you. You are a cog in the machine, and that is all you are. But I think, like Apocalypse Now, you do see that personal side. You see one man see what war has done to you. With Full Metal Jacket, you have what, like a minute and a half of people getting their heads shaved to Hello Vietnam, right? Followed by like the longest, possibly most drawn out scene of the drill sergeant,
and an awesome scene with Arlie Ermey like doing his actual real life job, whereas in Apocalypse Now, like I was watching it and I was trying to figure out, okay, when is the opening over? I don't even know when the opening's over, because like you do get the scenes, just the panning shot scenes of the trees on fire. Cool, that's most action movies. It's not unique. And then it's just a bunch of shots of Martin Sheen waking up. Cool. Then he goes to the window. I'm in Saigon. Nothing like really happens in Apocalypse Now until like you're way past the opening, because he's just eating dinner with the commanding officers like 20 minutes into the film. Like the opening is like next to nothing. Whereas if I'm going to go 20 minutes into Full Metal Jacket, I'm getting like all of the rigors of basic training, PT, like him treating Pyle like shit. Like it's really, really dehumanizing. And Arlie Ermey is doing a great job.
Yeah, I would say that like if we're going by what an opening is, I was kind of treating it as the opening shot of like trees blazing on fire. I'm still in like Saigon, and then when it cuts back to like the montage, and then you have like the guys coming up the stairs. And I think that's where I would ultimately call like the opening. Like
I don't think that's that compelling though. Like, I mean, I understand who Ben Willard is in the opening. I understand he's a volunteer. He's a special forces guy. This is not Apocalypse Now is just basically like a chase sequence. Like he's going to retrieve a person. That's not what the Vietnam War is about. The Vietnam War was about the draft, people being plucked out of society and thrown into the jungle to die. Apocalypse Now doesn't capture that. This is one psycho chasing another psycho. It's
the
very
Vietnam
minute.
War was about the Vietnam War. It was about the war. It wasn't necessarily the draft process, which is all you get with Full Metal Jacket. You see a guy who's actually there, who's experienced the horrors of the war, and you see what it's done to him. Because you're right, Apocalypse Now doesn't necessarily follow like start to finish like what the war is like. It's a singular moment in the war that you need to establish real quick. Like this isn't like an intro to the war. This is he's in the heat of it.
Yeah, so it's just like a human interest story about two guys in the war, opposed to like Platoon, opposed to like Casualties of War, opposed to Full Metal Jacket, where this is the American experience. Ben Willard is not having the American experience. He's having the experience of one man who likes killing people too much, who like loses himself, and that was not a common experience in the Vietnam War.
I think with Full Metal Jacket, you can only really get into it like if you like you know about like the Vietnam War. Like yes, you get drafted. Yes, the heads were shaved. Yes, it's terrible, right? But I don't think it does as good of a job as showing like what the war is like as Apocalypse Now does.
Not in the beginning, no. And I don't think Apocalypse Now does either. All we see is a couple trees on fire. Like, there's no like horrors
but
of
again,
war.
the opening is more than that, though. You see a lot of the shots of Willard, like
Well, you're saying your whole point was like, well, what do people really know about the Vietnam War? Well, I guess we have to go beyond the beginnings of both movies to establish that. Because in my movie, it's just people getting their head shaved and getting yelled at. In your movie, it's a guy dreaming about fire and waking up. Like, right? But like Ben Willard is not a common. Ben Willard is one man. He's a unique man. He is not a Vietnam veteran like your typical one. Whereas every dude we meet in the first 2 minutes of Full Metal Jacket is your neighbor, like my cousin, your uncle. It's regular people. Ben Willard's not a regular dude.
Again, let's talk about the question for a second. The question isn't what best describes the Vietnam War. It's just what the best opening of a Vietnam War film is. So your
thing, it's still just trees on fire and a dude waking up. That's all it is.
It's establishing the mental image of where a man who's clearly broken is, right, due to the effects of the war, so that we can see his progression from that point out, right?
He's also drunk off his ass in a room by himself. It could easily just be attributed to the fact that he's drunk. So, like,
in which case the cinematographer's trying to trip you up. Again, it's a brilliant opening either way you spin it. But with Full Metal Jacket, you're just seeing over and over and over again, like, the hammering, the repeated like insults, which again, that's what the film is going for, but it's not a compelling opening. I'm sorry. It's just too drawn out, and it's
one of the greatest monologues ever delivered.
Time. Okay. We are going to start closings with Josh. Josh, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
So the reason why I picked Apocalypse Now is because film and cinema is really an art, right? Even though it may not be a one-shot take, it may not be like the greatest monologue ever written, right? You still see it's trying to convey something, right? It's trying to convey a message. And when you want to open up a film, you want to convey what your main character is feeling, what is their headspace, and what is kind of the themes and the motives that the movie is going to present. Apocalypse Now does it brilliantly because the whole movie is like kind of psychopaths chasing each other, right? And in order to really establish, like, this is the horrors of the war, right? This is what war does to you. This is the awful thing that has happened. Apocalypse Now does that really brilliantly by showing Willard in his animalistic state in his room, superimposed over shots of the horrors of war. Whereas Full Metal Jacket, you could easily establish the same impact in half the time and without the buzz cut scene.
Okay. Let's move over to John. John, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
I'm going to stick to my point that Ben Willard is just one man, and he is a commando. He existed in the military before the war. He exists through the war. He abandons his life for the war. Like Josh admitted, this is just two dudes that in the backdrop of the Vietnam War, whereas Full Metal Jacket reflects the society that America was going through, the feelings of society of just disenfranchised young men being plucked out of their lives and thrown in the face of people that do not care about them and see them as cannon fodder. It is actually more horrifying than just some dude who volunteered to blow people up, having a nightmare and waking up drunk in a hotel room in Saigon. Full Metal Jacket, these are not soldiers. These are real life people being plucked from their lives, having their heads shaved, and then having probably another psychopath, Arlie Ermy, giving the greatest monologue. Probably, I take issue with Josh saying anything about that monologue. Arlie Ermy giving one of the greatest monologues, ad-libbed, but mind you, Kubrick loved it, of all time. These are real people in real situations, not psycho volunteers chasing each other around the jungle.
Okay. Good shit.
I mean, two great movies, right?
Oh,
I agree. Yeah. I agree. We're debating right now. I agree. We're debating.
Yeah, we're debating, but yeah.
Tim, say the question one more time for me.
I would love to. What is the best opening to a Vietnam War film?
I'm out of Guinness.
Oh,
I only brought one drink.
I got a refill during that. Okay. I brought you with me though. Don't worry, guys. I thought that was great. Yeah, I love both these movies. Kubrick, one of my favorite directors. I haven't seen all of Coppola's work, but I love Apocalypse Now. So great picks. I went with John. Sorry, Josh, but I went with John. I thought that John just overall kind of explained to me why his scene was a better opening and a better what's the word? Appetizer, maybe, start to his story, his film, setting the stage. The monologue we talked about, the acting we talked about was all great. And I think Josh did a good job of explaining Apocalypse Now and the beginning of that film. But I think John just overall did a better job of why his scene is maybe more impactful for both the film and as a standalone scene. So I went with John. Payson, what do you think?
Yeah, excellent debate overall. I love both these movies as well. I think both scenes are really, really great. I think both players did a good job arguing. But yeah, we're going to sudden death because I also went with John. I think John did a phenomenal job setting the scene for setting a picture for how his scene really reflects both the movie that follows it and reflects what Vietnam War was. I also think John did a really great job at while I disagree with his takes, sort of boiling down Josh's scene to like, hey, it's just a tracking shot. It's just a guy waking up. I think Josh did a really solid job of showing like why there is so much into like how Coppola shoots that. But I do think John did a great job of just maybe pointing out why his scene on the surface is just more effective. I think John started to get a little caught in the weeds towards a little bit, and Josh did call him out of, hey, it's not the scene that best reflects the war, but it's the best scene. But I think John was able to circle that around of saying, hey, well, even you're just looking at this as a scene, you have Arlie Ermy giving one of the greatest monologues of all time. You have that juxtaposed with the soldiers getting their head shaved. And while I don't necessarily agree that Willard isn't like a super interesting character, I do think John's saying like, hey, these aren't just soldiers; these are real citizens. I think just adds to the uniqueness of the scene. So I did give John the point.
Okay, Rue, your vote does not count, but where would you have gone?
I would have went with Mr. Maher as well. I did like how both attacked the question from a different lens in terms of what they're doing. Both of y'all established them really well in the being dropped into the heat of Vietnam War to the horrors of before the war, what the actual horror of war is in the draft. And I think just John made his explanation of his opening, the horrors of being drafted was more compelling to me than being dropped in the middle of the war. And I also really like the attack of that what's his name, whatever his name's character is is inaccessible. He wants to go back. That was a really good attack that Josh hit, but he didn't hit enough for me to not like go back to. I still think the inaccessible thing versus this is you, this is everybody, and it really shows how much the horrors before the war are just as impactful as the war itself.
Okay. Well, that means that we are all tied. We're going to the bonus. Here is how it's going to work, gentlemen. I have randomized the categories that are remaining in Fanzone. It has to be a category that wasn't drafted in the main round. So what's going to happen is I'm going to say the question. I am going to then repeat the question. Once I have said the question for the second time, you may say your answer aloud. Whoever says their answer first will be going first. You will each get 45 seconds. So let's say John answers first. John will get 45 seconds. Then Josh will get 45 seconds. Then John would get 30 seconds. Then Josh would get 30 seconds. And then we'd be done. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions before we get started?
Makes sense.
Okay. You can use the Googles if you need to, or you can just use your gut. But here is your question. It's coming from the category of comedy. The question is, and it will be in the private chat for you. I should say that as well. Your question is, what is the best 21st century comedy to watch with friends? Again, what is the best 21st century comedy to watch with friends?
Step Brothers.
The Hangover.
Okay, that was quick. I love it. I'm going to stay on screen so that you guys can see the countdown. So, John, you're going to be going first with Step Brothers. You have 45 seconds on the clock when you start talking.
While I'm not personally like an adult loser, I know so many adult losers. And I really feel that even though it's over the top, Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly's characters in Step Brothers, I think we all know men, children like this. And what is Step Brothers? Quotable as hell. So many great characters, and really, it's a great redemption arc, and it gives hope to adult losers all around the world that all you have to do is find the talents within you and find a best friend who also shares your dreams, shares your talents, and you get to go and make your way into the world. And who doesn't love Sweet Child of Mine? That's such a great song, singing along. Adam Scott, a fantastic villain. Catherine Hahn, a great desperate whore. Richard Jenkins, a great beleaguered father. And everybody else is great too.
Josh, 45 seconds.
Okay, so I went with The Hangover because it disrupted the comedy scene, right? You haven't had a film like that was that outrageous before, you know? You have Bradley Cooper, who does a lot of really good dramatic stuff, and then kills it as this funny guy. You have Zach Galifianakis, Ed Helms, right? You have Ken Jeong, like doing his crazy thing, you know? You're talking about a movie that you want to sit down with friends, like that's going to get you a million laughs. Who hasn't like been out with their buddies on the town and just had ridiculous shenanigans go? Why don't you crank that up to the extreme? I think it's a better premise than Step Brothers. I think it's a better executed comedy than Step Brothers. And ultimately, I think that it's a funnier movie than Step Brothers. I think Step Brothers falls flat sometimes with just kind of stagnant, repeated jokes. And yeah.
Sorry. John, 30 seconds.
Josh says like the comedies weren't doing anything before The Hangover. The Step Brothers came out the year before that. It came out in 2008. Hangover's in 2009. Also, The Hangover has like a very horrible racist stereotype with Ken Jeong. Boo Hangover. How dare you do that? Step Brothers is insanely quotable. Even if it does fall flat, you have a small gap between the next great joke that people still quote to this day. You have ball sacks on drum sets. Did we just become best friends? The thing collapsing. There's 100 different jokes. I give actually Hangover joke for joke. I think that might even be a moot point. But Step Brothers did it first. That's what I'm hanging my hat on.
Josh, 30 seconds.
But my point is, Step Brothers wasn't as disruptive as The Hangover was, right? It's willing to take the jokes that you're going to make with your friends. It's going to put them on the big screen for you, right? The racist stereotype. Ken Jeong loves the character of Mr. Chow. What are you even talking about? I think joke for joke, it still stands up. And if you're looking at a movie that you want to watch with friends, right, you're going to pick The Hangover because Step Brothers, sure, it's a story of like two brothers like doing it. But The Hangover, it's a group of people. You can relate to a group of people. I'm going to see the rest of my time.
Oh.
I mean,
Okay. Yeah, there we go. Boom.
Okay.
All right. All right.
I'm at the end of the sentence. I figured there's no point.
You must have not heard me debate. 5 seconds is a fucking long time.
Yeah.
I finished my thought. I figured I could formulate another thought.
If you all haven't seen it, shout out to Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie for the funniest joke maybe of the past like 10 years.
I've heard it's excellent, and it's been on my list.
It involves one of these movies, is all I can say.
All right. I'm ready. It looks like Payson's ready.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, whenever you're ready, Rue, you can kick us off.
Sudden death is exhilarating.
Oh, question, Tim. So does this mean, like, in the next match, comedy's off the table if you win?
No,
Okay.
it does not. Speed round does not qualify.
Okay.
I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, you're good.
Great debut match, guys. I just want to say.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have hosted matches I do not feel that way about. Holy shit.
I mean, it's been a blast.
Y'all see like parts of my notes. It doesn't give anything away.
It's a good time.
Person with small handwriting, you can't tell what the fuck it says anyway.
That's fine. All right, Rue, kick us off.
All right, so this one was tough. Both of y'all got a lot of information out there. The one thing I will say is I think you all went towards what's the better movie instead of focus on what's the best one to with friends. And that's what's kind of holding me up. And I was trying to think about what did they say about watching with friends. Both did a really good job of why you would do that in terms of how good of the movie was. And it really came down to, for me, I think John did a better job of describing like the benefits of watching it with friends at first, but Josh did a better job of attacking the other movie, and it was really tough. And my gut ended up saying that I need the fact that I did not really hear Attack on the Hangover like at all for the friends reason, not the why it's a better movie, but why not watching it with friends is what ultimately made me pick Josh.
Okay, well, this one's gonna go to Payson. I went with John. Yeah, I once again, Rue is so good at judging. He's very good at explaining what he thinks, and then he almost convinces me, or does convince me. But I did go with John. I felt like yes, I agree with both. Did a good job of talking about why it was why their movies were good. I ultimately felt like John convinced me that Step Brothers was this kind of like quotable all character type of thing that anybody can kind of sit down and watch and enjoy with a group. And I don't know, there was something about I now that Ruth says it about like no attacks on the Hangover, I'm kind of hearing at least the friend part of it. I hear it. Josh spent a lot of time, not a lot of time, but he talked about how the movie was like disruptive to the comedy scene and all this. And I thought John being like, I mean, there were other movies that like were similar-ish, like it, like yeah, kind of took that point for me. I went with John. I thought it was close. This whole match has been close. This is gross. Payson, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Just happy my internet is better, so I don't have to hold everyone up. Yeah, really great. Great argument. This is tough, like in general, of like maybe about as subjective as you can do and has to be in a speed round format. Ultimately, I did decide to go with John. And the reason why is because I think John did a great job of showing that Step Brothers is a film that when you watch it, you weirdly have, as stupid as it might be, if you watch it with friends, you might get this sort of like hopeful like nature of like brotherhood or just friendship like surrounding you. And I think John did a great. I liked him said I think Josh spent a little bit too much time in his arguments talking about how The Hangover was like a very revolutionary comedy and very disruptive, which I'm not saying it wasn't. That's just not what we were necessarily arguing. I think John did a great job pointing out. He also pointed out that maybe watching it in modern day sensibility, there are some things about The Hangover that might not hold up as well. In certain things, whether he brought up or not, he did give some examples. So I did decide to go with John. Congratulations.
All right. Well, that means your winner is John Maher. Fantastic. I mean, we've all said it, but this was phenomenal. One of the best debuts I think we've ever seen, and I expect great things from these players. I will be watching their careers with great interest. I think, like I've said, I said at the beginning, Josh has done well in fandom, has had some fun in fandom. I think he might have found his calling here in this league. I think Josh did really well here. Wasn't sure how he was gonna act or react to it, but I thought he did phenomenal. And John, we know he can make some good arguments, and he did today. I thought he was great. And yeah, this was just phenomenal. Rue, I want to get final thoughts from you, kind of. From the debut side of things, what do you think of this match?
I thought this was fantastic. I was very happy to be here. I really hope to see both of these gentlemen for a long, long time. There is no retirement matches here. You only retire yourself, even if you're 0 for whatever. So I would love to see y'all do this for years. I think they both showed why they can be very, very good and showed that it's their debut. So they kind of made the same mistakes while also making the same really, really great arguments. And I will say, John brought what he brought. I knew what he was coming with. I was very happy to see that Josh could also hold his own. And I think he got a really, really good, great first match because he had to deal with somebody who's going to make it uncomfortable. So like down the line, if he has a Nazario, if Bill comes back or anything, he's used to it because he had John hitting him, and John did what he did. This was great. This was fantastic.
Yeah, Payson, what do you think? What were your final thoughts?
Yeah, Rue said it much more eloquently than I think I could have. I think this was a phenomenal debut match. Like Rue said, some minor rookie mistakes, but they're rookies, so they're probably going to make it, and I can't wait to see how they improve as debaters. I think Josh showed a lot of strength in his loss. I think John just once again showed that the guy has so much passion and just being such a quick thinker. If you've ever watched him just play trivia and the way he gets barbs out, you could probably guess that he can translate that into debate, and he did. Both players, I think something that's really fun, they both got a point from a question that they brought and also got a point from their opponent's question. So we see that they can both adapt. So yeah, both great performances for both, but congrats to John for getting this win.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for us today at Fanzone Debate. Thank you so much to John and Josh for playing. Thank you, Amaru and Payson. Thank you to everyone else who makes this thing run. Your Kirks, your Bryans, your Marks, your Nicks. We love you. We'll see you next time with more Fanzone Debate. Until then, bye-bye.
Hands, touching hands, reaching out, touching me, touching you, sweet Caroline.